Right. You are welcome to this broadcast. Welcome to this live broadcast with Dr. Wilbert Mutoko. And I'm excited that you are watching this video. I want us to talk on the subject better than my predecessors. Better than my predecessors. Somebody might want to know, what does it mean when we say predecessors? A predecessor is somebody who came before you. A predecessor is probably somebody who worked in a place before you started working in that position. It could be a pastor who was pastoring an assembly before you came. It can be an officer who was running a certain office before you arrived. That's your predecessor. Better than my predecessor. Greater than my predecessor. Let me give you some context to this video. There was a time in the past when I really thought that I was better than my parents. I want you to get me right. Surely I could be better than them, but I think it's not right to take all the credit as if I have become better because of me. I really wondered why probably my parents were low-class people. I wondered why we grew up in the rural areas when others went to the city. Other children my age, they would go and get their secondary school. Some even got their primary school and their tertiary education from the city because their parents had enough money to fund that kind of education. But for me and many others, and probably some of you watching this video, you also went through what I went through. And at times I would appreciate my parents for what they did, but there are times when I felt that, you know what, my parents could have done this, could have done this, could have done this, could have done this. Until I learned that I'm not necessarily greater than my predecessor because I'm smarter than them. I need to realize something that these predecessors did that I didn't do. Imagine that you are to plant a field in a virgin land where there are some rocks, there are some thorns, there are a lot of trees. Is it the same as someone who will come after you and plant in that same place, but now they are planting after you had already planted? You will agree with me that every pioneer works extra hard. Every pioneer goes through so much pain. Every trailblazer works extra hard to clear the way for those who come later. We saw this in the life of the greatest man who ever lived on earth, and his name is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Jesus Christ appreciated the ministry of John the Baptist. Why? Because John the Baptist was like a curtain raiser for Jesus. John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus. He did a lot of work. Look at it this way. Jesus was staying among the people in homes, but John did not stay in homes. John was staying in the wilderness. How many of us here want to stay in the wilderness? John was eating wild food. He was drinking water from the wilderness. The wilderness is not a nice place to be. The wilderness is usually hot. The wilderness is usually having many dangerous creatures like snakes, scorpions, and all that. If at all it happens that it rains in the wilderness, you have nowhere to hide. Maybe you have to hide in the caves. And in those caves, you will find some dangerous creatures there. Jesus understood this principle. He honored John the Baptist for the great work that he had done. But many of us, we go around telling people that I'm better than those who came before me. And the question is it true that you are better? Is it true that you are greater? Some of you have not yet gotten what I'm saying. Some of you always say that you are better than your parents. Your parents came before you, and they had to fight battles, some which they never told you. And here you are assuming you are a superpower, you are a superhero. Some of you even talk negative about your parents because you don't understand what they went through. The same applies with mentors and mentees. As a mentee, when somebody brings you into their life and they begin to help you, they begin to advise you, do you really appreciate, or you begin to think, you see, I just started recently and I'm even better than my mentor? Do you realize that your mentor is like a ladder? You are taking advantage of your mentor. You are taking advantage of your predecessor. Your predecessor is like John the Baptist, who was in the wilderness. And you need to appreciate them for the great work that they did before you came. They removed the rocks. They had all the problems with evil creatures. It depends. If it is a mentor, let's say in business, probably when they started in business, they didn't have so many opportunities like you have today, where you have internet, where you have different gadgets that you can use, where you can address thousands or millions of people at the same time online. They didn't have that. Don't think you are greater than your predecessors, but you need to appreciate them. Imagine you are a pastor. You come to pastor an assembly. Probably the person who started that assembly in your country, when they started, they only managed to gather 8 people for 6 years. Then you came as the second pastor, or you came as the third pastor, and now you have got 5,000 believers. And it's tempting for you to think that your predecessors were not serious. It's easy to think that your predecessors did not work hard. It's easy to think that your predecessors did not pray enough. That's why they had 8 believers. That's why they had 21 believers. That's why they had only 100 believers. But you see, you just came in and you have 5,000 believers. What you are forgetting is that this land that you are plowing, this land that you are sowing in, somebody was sowing in there in tears until they got those 8 people. You don't know what they fought. Greater than my predecessor. Am I indeed greater than my predecessor, or I'm just assuming I'm greater? I've heard quite a number of people. There's one great man, I appreciate him. I will not mention names. He's always talking about how his father was a poor man, but his father was so prayerful. Now, I've nothing against that great man. I learn a lot from him and I appreciate him, but I think probably he has never really thought about what we are talking about today. He would pray for hours with his dad, and then his dad will continue to pray for more hours than the ones that they would have prayed with the son. The son became a greater pastor than his father, and he became rich. His father was poor. He couldn't manage many things. So when the son talks, he says, my dad was a prayer warrior, but he had nothing. He doesn't realize that his dad was a pioneer. For the son to come and prevail as a pastor, for the son to come. In fact, you should be able to look and say, okay, why did my father pray more hours? What was he praying for? Probably he's praying for me. It's most likely. He's praying for the son. And the son now makes money. He becomes successful. So the father was successful spiritually. The son became successful both spiritually and financially. And the son, yes, he took care of his father. He did well. I appreciate that. But I think by continuously giving the example of his dad as a poor man, that's being disrespectful. With all due respect to the great man that I'm talking about, I love him. I respect him. But I'm saying we can learn something. You are not greater than your predecessor. You are not. You are not. First Kings chapter 5. First Kings chapter 5. There's a very interesting story there we can learn from. Whether you are in business or it's a family or it's ministry, whatever it is, I want you to know you can learn something from the story in First Kings chapter 5. The Bible tells us that King Solomon, as soon as he was anointed king to replace his father David, Hiram, the king of Tyre, heard that Solomon had taken over from his father, and he sent some people to see Solomon. Hiram, the king of Tyre, was a very good friend of David's. Now, for those of you who probably don't follow the Bible, I just want to give you a preamble for this story. David was a great king. And at the same time, he was a great lover of God. David fought so many battles in his life, but he never lost one. According to Bible scholars, they say David fought more than 66 battles, but he never lost one. Now, one thing about David is that he loved God so much that he wanted to build the house of the Lord. After fighting so many battles, he still wanted to make sure he spends his money to build a temple, to build the house of the Lord. But God said to David, David, you have shed so much blood. So I'm not going to allow you to build a temple for me, but your son Solomon will do it. So when you read First Kings chapter 5, from verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, going forward, the Bible says, the king of Tyre, Hiram, sent his people to see Solomon because he had been a lover, an admirer of David for a long time. And Solomon spoke to Hiram, or wrote to Hiram, and said, King Hiram, you know that my father, the king, when he was still alive, he had it in his heart to build a house for the Lord, to build a temple for the Lord his God. But he could not, for he had many battles to fight until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. To cut the long story short, Solomon became more successful than his father David. Solomon built a great house for the Lord. He built a great house for himself. He became the wisest man in the whole world. It's like that even the Queen of Sheba, when she heard about Solomon, she had to come and see what Solomon had to understand his wisdom. And when she came, she was shocked. She realized that what people had said about Solomon was not even up to half of what she saw in Solomon's kingdom. What am I saying? David wanted to build the house of the Lord. Why didn't he build? Because he had fought so many battles. And then the question is, how many battles did Solomon fight? Why would he need to fight so many battles when his father David had done the job? The Bible tells us that when Solomon came in, he just needed to follow his father's advice here and there to make sure he removed some people that were dangerous. And then he had peace all around him, and he ruled for 40 years very peacefully. Why? Because his father, his predecessor, had done a lot of work. It would not be wisdom for Solomon to think that he had peace because he was wise. Yes, his wisdom brought peace, but the truth of the matter is the man David, the predecessor, is the one who had cleared the way for Solomon. Who are the people in your life, as I come towards the end of this broadcast? Who are the people in your life that have worked so hard to make life easier for you to become more successful? Who are the people that have been like ladders, your predecessors? They worked very hard for you to become who you are, and you have not appreciated them. Who are those people? I want you to think about it. In your spiritual journey, in your financial journey, in your business journey, in your health journey, even as you grew up being taken care of by guardians, by your parents, whoever was taking care of you, whoever did some amazing things, how did you appreciate them? Some of you didn't appreciate them, but you are abusing the names of those people. You go around telling everybody how this person have been so bad to you. I pray that God will help you so that you begin to appreciate your predecessors. Are you truly greater than your predecessors? Maybe yes. But is it because of your undoing? Most likely no. Let's appreciate the people that came before us. Let's appreciate the people who did things before we came on the scene. May the Lord grant you grace. In case you were not able to watch this video live, I want to encourage you to share the video, to watch it from beginning to end, and if possible, repeat it 3 times to understand what I'm saying. Let's learn something about our predecessors. Let's appreciate them. If they are still alive, even bless them. David was so good at those things. Even when the people who did good to him were no longer there, he would be a blessing to their children and their grandchildren. Most people forget so fast when some people have helped them. Greater than my predecessors. Thank you so much. Signing out, Dr. Wilbert Motoko. Remember, I love you. Bye-bye.